Hey, did you know you can go to colinmullen.com in order to get art and art prints? It's true. That's why I made the website, colinmullen.com. So hey everybody, if I'm doing my math right, this is the second to last Artcade for the year. Wow. So I guess I should talk about this painting real quick. So near the end, I try and add some extra elements, and I'm just like, man, that's just gonna be tacky. Of like adding a burning cross in the background, and I'm just like, man, a little heavy-handed on that. I feel like this look is a little bit more subtle, and it gets the point across all the same. But yeah, anyway, I hope you enjoy the painting. But let's talk about today's thing. So guess what time it is? It's time to talk about AI art again, because there's new stuff that's happening, particularly people who are protesting on ArtStation using a series of images that are just, international no sign and AI written under it, and they're just sort of spamming the heck out of the website with just a bunch of different images, some slightly more creative, just to make sure that they're not flagged for reusing the same image or what have you, in order to just like really mess with stuff like Stable Diffusion and Midjourney AI. As an aside, as a quick project, I decided I'd go ahead and try and run a couple generations of stuff on Stable Diffusion, specifically with ArtStation in the prompt, and it doesn't seem to be working. So there's that. I mean, I get where they're coming from. I really do. I'm not a fan of AI art at all, but as far as at least this one version of Stable Diffusion that I have access to, I'm not seeing any of the artifacts of the AI international no sign thing showing up anywhere. It's just, I searched cat in a tree, and it's just, pictures of cats and trees. It's not, messed up or censored in any way. Maybe the people who are running this website have not scraped ArtStation for new content. Who knows? Type in the same thing and just hit generate image again based on how the randomized seed thing works. You can actually get the same image several times if you just search or if you have the access to that seed, and then you can enter that seed into the prompts and the original image. You can get the same result multiple times. But there have been, I would say, like 3 arguments that I keep seeing that are, I guess, considered good by people who are into AI art, that I just want to like briefly touch on to talk about a bit. And like, listen, I'm always ready to admit that I'm wrong, but so far I haven't seen good evidence that I am in this case. So I'm going to continue believing I'm right until I'm proven wrong. And I am actively trying to find if I'm wrong. I watched a bunch of videos of people who are very pro AI art just to see, like, am I like in an echo chamber? Am I just listening to the things I'm listening to? And man, I'm not seeing too many good arguments out there. One did have a very solid point that said that, obviously my problem with AI art, and a lot of people's problem with it, is that it, illegally stole a bunch of art to be able to use for the original, I believe it's called Lions 5A or something, 5B. I'll have to double check that, but that was the original source of 5 billion images that were used in the creation of pretty much every one of the AI art generating things that are out there right now. And then it's just from there, where did it go? I would like to go over a couple of arguments that through my research for this video that I've seen, and just when I made the last video, some comments that I've gotten and messages sent to me that are arguments for AI art, because I do not think that you should stay in an echo chamber. I went out and watched a bunch of videos, and they made me mad because they disagreed with me, but I tried my best to try and see the other side of this, because I feel like that's how you have a well-rounded and good understanding of the world. So principally, I've seen 3 arguments for AI art being good, and I'm going to go over those real quick. So the first one is that the concerns about where the sourcing comes from, Lion 5B, I believe is the name of the image depository of 5 billion images that were scraped together from various sources. Transparency on that is not super good, and that is the data set that was used to train all these different AIs, everything from Midjourney to Stable Diffusion, so on and so forth. We're all trained on the same data set. It's just how they interpret that information and how their seeds work out determines, the quality of one to the next, and so on and so forth. The argument that I've seen for it is that when you sign up for a website to post your art, you sign up for every terms and conditions that they've got, and maybe in there's something that says, hey, we're allowed to do whatever we want with your images. Traditionally, most of these websites do not have that clause, because when it comes to stuff that involves money, I actually read contracts. When it comes to my art, I read contracts. None of the websites that I've posted on have the use to be able to post my work for anything other than to be able to share it in the intended way. So I don't know if that's totally accurate. And additionally, even if it was, I don't think that legality is necessarily the best way of determining whether or not something is morally correct. It is, for example, illegal in parts of the United States to feed the homeless. That is considered illegal. And in a good and just world, illegal things would also be immoral things. So doing something that was illegal could easily be conflated to something that is immoral, but that is not the world that we live in. We have some laws that are antiquated or made for bizarre reasons, and that does not necessarily mean that it equates. Sometimes legal things are good things, and illegal things are bad things, but sometimes not. However, I think that if someone is saying, hey, don't take things from me, and then you do, and you benefit from having taken stuff from them, you've definitely done something wrong in my book. Another argument that I see is people saying that it takes a lot of skill to use the programs, and that it takes a lot of work to try and get really what you want to get out of it. It also takes a lot of skill to order a hamburger just the way you want at a restaurant. That does not make you an artist. That makes you someone who's able to fill out a form. These are not the same thing. I have no idea why this is an argument, but it's something that people say. I've also seen, and this is probably one of the most common arguments for AI art, is that the way that a human being makes art is by using references, by having seen things either in real life or from other artists, and therefore another argument I hear quite often is that a artist uses things that they see in addition to other people's works. For instance, you might see a Van Gogh and you get inspired by it, and then you try and do your own Van Gogh. You decide to try and use some of those colors, you try and do some of the same kind of things, and it inspires you to do more work. And they say, how is that different than the way that AI does art? And the main difference there is that I can do stuff that is not necessarily something that I've seen before. I can work on stuff that is not necessarily the same as something that has been presented in front of me, whereas AI art is only as good as I think it's 5 billion images that have been pumped into it at its start, and whenever it's refreshed and added more content. It's sort of, I think, closer to using collage, where you have a box. I put cat in a tree as the prompt to check and see whether or not the ArtStation protest is working. And it would be like a person blindly taking cutout pictures of cats and putting them in a background that has a tree. And trying to kind of crop it so that way it actually kind of fits into the tree naturally, and that is the extent of what it can do. It cannot iterate to any degree. It cannot really learn how to improve on that system. It only has access to the images that it has access to, and it doesn't know anything beyond that. This is a bad argument because this is not how artists do art. A lot of artists, for the longest time, at least when I was growing up, it was seen as shameful to have references. I don't believe that anymore. I've even done a video about why I think it's fine to use references to be able to learn and be able to see what a thing looks like. But you look at 100 pictures of a hand and you slowly go, okay, I can draw a hand. And you could draw hands in positions and perspectives that are not ones that you've seen before, or maybe a cat in a perspective that you haven't seen before, because you know how a cat is structured now. This robot cannot do that. this robot has to go with the some amalgamation of the images of cats that it's seen before. And that's why when it starts to getting into very specific poses, that it starts really breaking down and having issues. When it starts to try and actually get to a pose that maybe it hasn't seen before or doesn't have knowledge of, it cannot do it. That is a fundamental difference between the way that AI learns and people learn. People can learn the anatomy and bone structure of a thing and be able to figure out, okay, well, these are the limits of its motion, and I can do something based on that. AI has to be limited to the images in its source pool. This is just a very ignorant statement on how artists work in general. I've not seen a cow, a longhorn, in this very specific pose before, but I have seen plenty of pictures and real longhorns in real life to be able to actually come up with this image, and I distorted it in ways that, benefit the image rather than, just going off of an image that I found on Google. I was able to find a bunch of images and go, okay, look, no, I'm gonna change it in this way for artistic reasons. I'm gonna change it in that way for artistic reasons. The AI is not doing it in a, thoughtful way. It's doing it in a slapdash way that makes the thing appear, even if it's not like perfect. It's that really weird thing that happens with like people's faces or hands in AI art, where it doesn't quite understand what it's looking at, because it's not actually understanding what it's looking at. It goes, okay, you want a cat, here's all the different images of cats, I'm gonna try and smush them together to try and get this image. It is data points on pixels in spots. That is different than understanding what the creature is. When I say cat, it has no real understanding of how a cat looks and cannot come up with new poses, cannot come up with new color patterns that, maybe you want a very specific one. It can't pull it off because it doesn't know. And then lastly, this one argument that I've seen quite a bit, and it's that AI art allows people who have disabilities or are unable to do art for some reason to be able to do art. And I think that this is potentially not made in good faith, but on the off chance that it is, I would just like to say I would really, really like to know what I can do to make this channel help everyone to do art. There have been plenty of cases of people in history. I tried looking up stuff, resources for people with disabilities to be able to do art. I have plenty myself, both physical and mental, that prevent me from doing art quite the way I want. I have shakes that make it so that way I cannot do very clean lines, so I work that into my style. Very much in the same way that if you have a disability, you have to really realize how that affects you and how that affects your life and how you can work with that. Maybe you don't run the mile, maybe you do something else as an exercise. In the same way, when you're doing art, you have to go, okay, here's the limits of what I can do physically and mentally. How can I make this work where I can still do what I want to do? And for me, really leaning into, okay, if I'm going to be shaky, if I'm going to, have that, then okay, fine. I will really lean into the painterly style and really be more expressive about my brush strokes and not try and be hyper precise on stuff, despite the fact that that is something that I would really like for myself. So, does AI art allow you to do art? It allows you to commission art from a robot. And I'm sorry to tell you that's all it really is. But if you'd like to learn art, if you'd like to learn how to do art, I am here to help you. Whatever your limitations are, let me know. I will make a video about that as best as I can. There's plenty of examples on YouTube of people with mental disabilities that prevent them from being able to do art, and I feel like I'm a lot more open about my mental disabilities and how that affects me doing art, because that's, more acceptable to talk about to some degree, and I'm more okay with talking about that personally. But for some famous examples of artists who had physical disabilities that were preventing them from being able to do art, I think we can talk about Frida Kahlo and how that majorly impacted her life and her ability to do art, and as well as Henri Matisse. In the later part of his life, he had someone else paint large squares where he would cut out the squares or cut out the shapes that he wanted to paint, because he couldn't really stand up and actually paint anymore. He would instead cut the shapes out of a piece of paper. You have to understand your limitations. You deal with this every single day if you have a physical disability. You already know what this is. Art is going to be no different in that respect. But I would encourage you to please, like, the world needs to hear that. The amount of information I could find about people who have physical disabilities, beyond people who have the ability to paint via using the paintbrush in their mouth, I could not find much. And my physical disabilities are not as severe as some people's. And so if you have a disability that prevents you from doing art, like, anonymously message me or something, and I will do my best to try and figure out a way that I can help you do art, and we can do something. I just want people doing art, man, especially when it's situations like that, because there's so much information there. There's a story that is not being told that could be. I don't know. I'm rambling, and this video is way too long at this point. I should thank the people on patreon.com /RevScarecrow who make this whole thing happen. You guys are incredible. Thank you guys so much. I'm sorry I don't post enough sketches. I just sort of go into art raw, it turns out. I found that out about my process, but theoretically, if I ever have a sketch again, I'll end up posting it. But you still get the full long form content of seeing the video with it not being sped up, so you can actually see how I'm making these marks, as well as access to the Discord if you donate $5 or more, and just my thanks here in the credits. That's what the following people did, starting with my mom and dad. Thank you. I love you. Thank you, Wapfu. Thank you, Top Houndor. Thank you, Tom K. Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Terry Maverick. Thank you, Snoutpunk. Thank you, Skelecorgi. Thank you, Retrograde. Thank you, Mortis Natus. Thank you, Maliciousness. Thank you, May. Thank you, Lost Nevada. Thank you, Kayla Hollinger. Thank you, Gala. Thank you, Gabriel Bennett. Thank you, Draken. Thank you, Chiptune Glitch. Thank you, Blake. Thank you, Bep. Thank you, BD648. Thank you, Amber. Thank you, Acrobus. And thank you, Ants. It is currently 10:30 at night, and I don't want my neighbors to murder me. Thank you guys so much. Again, like, I'm serious about that last bit. Like, let me know what I can do for you, and I'll see you in the next one.